Golden State's on the prowl for some more star power. Who could they land? When will they land them? What's the plan? We're going to talk about it on today's Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the good word, everyone? Thanks for making Locked On Warriors your first listen of every day. We're free and available wherever you get your audio podcasts. And if you're watching on YouTube, good to see you. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate a like and subscribe. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Co-host today is Kylen Mills. Covered the Warriors for Cron 4 and NBC Sports Bay Area. Myself, Charlie Walter, for KPIX and 95.7 The Game. Golden State is plotting their next move. Who could it be? And will it be a big-time star? It sounds like it based on everything we've heard. Also, Steph Curry, extension time. It's coming up. And reports are saying that he is expected to sign maybe a 1-2 year extension to stay with the Golden State Warriors. Plus, we got to talk a little King James. He almost came to the Bay. How close was he? We're getting into all that and more on today's Locked On Warriors. But Kylen, Golden State plotting the next move. I hear plotting the next move, and I think of Joe Lacob and Mike Dunleavy, stogies in hand, maybe a little scotch, just looking at the data analysis of all the players available and given one of these.
The scotch, like right I feel there. Like
Welcome
it's a
to the
throwback.
Show. Yeah.
I feel like drinking a little scotch while they do it seems like a throwback. That's not really a thing nowadays. Like back in the day, that's like TV executives used to do that, right? Like hosts, people on air used to just like have the scotch in the office, kind of Anchorman style, supposedly.
Yeah, you hear the word plotting in any report, and you just think that little hand motion that I just did. So this is all according to reporter Mark Stein. Had a lot of good nuggets from this report. Says that team officials believe they remained well-positioned for a trade upgrade at some point in the next year. Kind of what we've been saying all along, right? My motto for the Golden State Warriors currently is waiting in the weeds, ready to pounce, because that's what it feels like they are. They have the assets engaged. They have already said that this team is not good enough internally. That's what it sounds like from this report. The key Warriors stakeholders grasp Curry's sustained greatness after they all watched him on the Olympic stage, and team sources said there's an internal understanding that his current supporting cast cannot be considered a finished product if the 2025 NBA championship is believed to be a reachable goal. So my question becomes, who are they hoping blows up during the season? That's the fun game show we play. Da-da-da-da. Will it be the Pelicans and Zion Williamson? Could he be coming to the Bay? How about Devin Booker? Seemed like Steve Kerr liked him. Will the Phoenix Suns implode and the Golden State Warriors nibble on some of the bait that they have available? Or could it be Giannis and the Bucks? That's what we're going to be playing for the next 3-4 months, is who's blowing up in the NBA, because that would be the team that the Golden State Warriors are going to go after. Because I don't think there are 3-4 teams in better position trade asset-wise than the Golden State Warriors. Plenty of picks, young talent. Some of them have to be paid soon in Jonathan Kuminga, but you also have Brandon Bajemski. We haven't even talked about Trace Jackson-Davis. And then the big thing, around mid-December, which is when it'll probably get a little spicy for the Warriors, Kyle Anderson, Buddy Hield, and DeAnthony Melton in their mid-sized contracts will also be tradable. So that's kind of the waiting game we're playing right now. How long will it take the Warriors to get a star? But it sounds like that's the move here.
I think it is the move. I mean, at this point, the well has run dry in terms of moves to be made this offseason. And apparently the Warriors wouldn't be interested in Brandon Ingram, which has been out for the last maybe 2 weeks. That's the only other player that I see currently who maybe would be interested in moving on from the Pelicans. And apparently they're not seeing eye to eye in terms of the dollar amount that Brandon Ingram wants. Because that is one thing that I will say. He's not worth a max extension or I can't remember what the exact dollar amount is that he's asking for and that he wants. But aside from that, like there's really no one out there that excites me. It's like Zach LaVine is the other player the Bulls were desperately trying to offload. It's just like this offseason has not had a lot of options aside from Paul George. I think would have been a feasible second option for the Warriors, and that fell through. And then Lauri Markkanen. Outside of that, like I said, Brandon Ingram over the last few months is the only other player that I was saying I could see working and being able to, provide that secondary scoring alongside Steph Curry in the backcourt. As of right now, there's not really anyone that I really like. I think once again, there are players out there you could add that are role players, but the Warriors are beyond needing role players. They need a reliable secondary scorer. What I think a lot of people don't realize is that this Dubs team and Steve Kerr and Steph Curry and Draymond Green are going to have to face the music when they walk into training camp and Klay Thompson isn't there. Because let's face it, whether he was on, whether he was off, I've criticized his play just as much as anyone these last couple of years. At times, a black hole when he receives the ball. He still has gravity. He still helps space the floor. Hopefully, yes. I know we're hoping Buddy Hield can provide something similar in terms of the three-point spacing, but he's not a defender the way Klay Thompson was. Klay Thompson, even not at his best in terms of his career best, these last couple of years, still provided a great value to this Warriors team. So it's going to be very interesting to see exactly how they figure out those rotations. They figure out the right piece next to Steph. But I think reality is coming come training camp to see exactly how this team's going to figure it out. And it's clear they still need that reliable second option. The only other thing is if Jonathan Kuminga steps into that role consistently, which he's shown flashes of. But otherwise, like you said, it's the lottery. It's the guessing game as far as what team could possibly be sellers as the season progresses.
Well, they went after their second star this offseason. You mentioned Paul George. You mentioned Lauri Markkanen. But it sounds like those were just basic conversations, a little round of speed dating, and that was pretty much it.
I do want to mention real quickly, Charlie, that on 95.7 The Game, that they talked about this extensively, and the Warriors front office has said they went all in on Markkanen, supposedly went all in. Now, of course, other reports out there were saying they weren't willing to budge. Joe Lacob wasn't willing to budge on Brandon Podziemski. But in terms of what the front office members have said, at least to the local Bay Area media, they claim they went all in. They did not answer the question of whether or not Brandon Podziemski was truly the sticking point, but they claimed that they made a very serious and valiant effort, and that this front office is very aware that they need a secondary option. And they were not just scratching the surface. They were really, really working hard to try to make a deal happen with Markkanen. I also question a little bit, though, how much Danny Ainge was really just kind of playing poker, or at least showing his poker face, trying to, mess around with the whole thing. I just don't know how serious he ever was about making that trade happen. That is something that I question. Did they really want to let Markkanen go? He's definitely—
No, they didn't. What they did was they threw out Jonathan Kuminga, Brandon Podziemski, and a bunch of first-round picks, knowing that the Warriors weren't going to make that trade.
Correct.
And then as soon as the Warriors said, you guys are crazy, they're like, all right, well, throw Podziemski in the mix. We can talk about it. And whether the Warriors did or not, that remains to be seen based on those reports, though, from 95.7 The Game. Maybe they didn't throw in the Podziemski, but they offered the Kuminga, the Moody, and the picks. One will never know. What we want to know, Steph Curry, will he sign an extension for the Golden State Warriors? If he does, that'll tell you a lot about his belief in the direction of the franchise. When will Steph sign that extension? We're talking about it coming up on Locked On Warriors. This episode is sponsored by Betterhelp. Let me tell you what, Kylen. There are some things in life that are non-negotiable. For me, growing up, being called chicken legs, leg day. Non-negotiable.
What?
Got to do them at least once a week, leg days. But for many people, myself included, therapy is a non-negotiable. Therapy's huge. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. And if you're thinking of starting therapy, you definitely give BetterHelp a try. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedonnba today to get $10% rather off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedonnba. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedonnba. Back to the conversation on the Golden State Warriors. Steph Curry is expected to sign an extension with the Dubs per Mark Stein. The timeline somewhat unclear right now, but a 1-year, $62.6 million extension between now and opening night on October 22nd is possible, or he could wait for a slightly more lucrative extension that could be 2 years, around $130 million per Stein. So now everything's starting to make sense. I've been kind of reading tea leaves the entire offseason, but these reports have put everything into perspective and together. The Golden State Warriors know that they are not good enough to win an NBA championship. Nod your head if that is correct. It is correct. You're listening. You know the same thing. There's a reason why their odds to win are like 17th best in the NBA, and best case scenario right now is avoiding the play-in tournament. I think that is the general consensus. We also know that Steph Curry was in on the recruitment of Paul George. Dunleavy keeps him in the loop on options and on ultimate personnel decisions. Curry, although they didn't get George, they didn't get Markkanen, sources say that he has not expressed any signs of panic or unrest. So now you hear that he could potentially wait and get a nice lucrative 2-year extension around $130 million. Now you're looking at Steph Curry to be in the Bay Area until he's 40 years old. You saw what he did in the Olympics, and it makes sense. They need more. They are going to try and get more. The issue is they can't really do it right now. They don't have the money to go get someone in free agency if that option was available. They have the assets to trade for someone, but now that Markkanen's not on the table, they don't want to trade for any of these available players. They don't want Levine. They don't want Brandon Ingram. So what do you do? So it really is the waiting game. Do you believe that Steph Curry is a Golden State Warrior until he's 40 years old?
Yes, absolutely. Steph Curry is a Golden State Warrior until he's 40 years old, until he ever decides that he's going to hang it up and retire. That's the bottom line. Mike Dunleavy Jr., Joe Lacob, they have said they're willing to give Steph Curry whatever he wants and whatever he's asking for to stay with his Dubs organization. He's done too much. He's too beloved, and he's too much of a generational talent to ever let walk away. So I think that whatever it takes, you've got to get a deal done. I think it's also important to keep in mind that Steph Curry is a team player. So I wouldn't be surprised, and I could see him being the type who would take a pay cut, who would take maybe a lesser extension than what he truly deserves because he wants this to be a competitive basketball team. Steph Curry has said, I'm not willing to play on a team or to see out my career the way Kobe Bryant did. I would have a hard time with a team that's not going to be truly competitive come the postseason, whether that be a team that doesn't make the playoffs, a play-in team, or even I just think a 6, 7, 8 seed, he's not going to be happy with. So Steph Curry cares about how competitive this team is from top to bottom. And I do think that he'd be the type who'd be willing to take a lesser dollar amount in order to make the Warriors better as a whole, because that's the kind of guy he is. He's selfless. He has the humility. And I do think that he truly is invested in this organization and what's going to be best for them and what's going to put them in the best position to win. So I have no doubt that the front office is going to get it done. They'll give Curry what he wants, but I also think that Curry's the type to be mindful in his expectations, and that, yes, of course, every star wants their money. Every star wants to get what they feel like they deserve, especially in the twilight of their career. But he is such a selfless guy. So I have no doubt that things are going to come to fruition. One thing I want to say on the show is that, listen, folks, Steph Curry is not washed. I've seen people comment it on our episodes. I've seen members of Dub Nation put it on Twitter, or X, technically is what it's called. And you look at the performance that Curry put on in those last couple games of the Olympics, and to me, that proves that he is still one of the best and definitely one of the best shooters in the game at 36 years old. Steph, in those last 2 games of the Olympics, hit 17 3-pointers. 17, starting with 9 against Serbia to help lift this team to an incredible comeback and the gold medal game. He came through in the clutch despite starting off cold in the tournament, and everyone was saying, and myself included, listen, the international game's faster, it's more physical. Steph may not be able to keep up the same way that he can in the NBA. Steph, you know what I mean? He may be overshadowed because of all of the big talent that's around him. It's not allowing him the same type of opportunities that he gets in the NBA and with the Golden State Warriors. And he proved everyone wrong. I tweeted out, like, what are they going to say now? Because flat out, I saw so many people saying Steph is washed. I said, absolutely not. I don't think he's washed. I think just the international game maybe isn't playing to his strengths. And he proved everybody wrong. I mean, his performances in those last 2 games were incredible. 24 points, all unmade threes in that 98-87 win over France for Team USA. You keep him around till he's 40, because listen, one thing that does not go away is the shooter's ability to shoot the basketball. The skill, the touch, the finesse. You don't lose that as you get older. Curry is a player who moves a lot off the ball, and that's where I think the legs may start to get tired at some point. And of course, legs getting tired from off-ball movement and the effort you're putting in there can affect your shot. It can lead you to coming up short. But I'm not concerned about that with Curry. I think with the way he can shoot the basketball, you keep him around until he's 40 and beyond if he wants to keep playing and he's healthy, or at least mostly healthy to that point. But Steph seems like the type that he'll know when it's time.
Yeah, it feels like to me, pay attention to the next 2 months, because Curry just flew back from Paris a few days ago. He's, I guess, a week ago at this point. He's going to unplug from basketball-related activities for just a bit. So there's going to be no contract conversation in the near future. It'll be on his preferred timeline. But with the deadline to extend being October 21st, it'll tell you a lot about what he's thinking. And granted, he can extend down the road, but you would think that that extra year would sound awfully enticing by October 21st. He extends for the extra year. He's not going anywhere. He believes that the Warriors are going to put the talent around him. And he believes that they're less than 2 pieces away. I think that's what it comes down to. Because when we talked at the beginning, the Warriors are plotting their next move. Do they need move, or do they need moves, plural, to be back in the conversation for serious NBA title contenders? Because it seems like they need moves, plural, but maybe they're just a move away if it's the right move. Maybe midway through the season, one of my favorite players in the NBA when he's healthy, someone like a Zion Williamson. He gets a little disgruntled in New Orleans. And I know that Ingram's going to be moving, so it's not going to be Zion. Okay, let's not use Zion. Let's use a Giannis, or the Suns decide to blow things up. You get one of those star players, all-star caliber players, to throw on this team, and you're only giving up draft capital, and maybe you do give up a Podziemski and a Wiggins, whatever it may be. Maybe they are a move away. I don't know. But that's going to be the big question, because if he does extend before October 21st and adds in an extra year, and Curry's playing in the Bay Area for 3 more years, you would have to think that he believes the Warriors are going to put a title contender around him, because he says he doesn't want to play on a team that's not competitive. And to me, not being in the mix, a serious contender, what's the worst thing than being bad? What's worse than being bad? It's being irrelevant, because at least when you're bad, you get a potential lottery pick, right? The ping pong ball spins your way, and you get a draft pick that changes the future. When you're just irrelevant, like a team like the Indiana Pacers have been for the last 15, 20 years, that's where you get really hurt in basketball. When you're in that purgatory where you're just never good and don't really have a future to get better. Any response to all that?
Yeah. Can I add something in about, I think whether or not the Warriors are 1 move away or 2 moves away or multiple moves away is going to also be dependent on how individuals on the roster develop and show up and play this season. For sure. If the Warriors get a Jonathan Kuminga who's dropping 20 plus tonight, who made huge strides in the offseason and suddenly is starting to hit outside shots, suddenly I'm like, yeah, they're 1 move away from being a contender. If Andrew Wiggins comes back and starts playing more like his 2022 self and not the inconsistencies we saw these last couple seasons, and it just looks like lack of joy, lack of wanting to be there, lack of intensity. If Andrew Wiggins dials it in and Jonathan Kuminga elevates his game and Brandon Podziemski continues to get better and Trace Jackson Davis continues to develop inside, like if all of these young players make the jumps that we're hoping they're going to make, and especially I think Andrew Wiggins could be a key piece if he somehow comes out and plays back like the Andrew Wiggins that we all know and love from 2022. I mean, I think this can be a playoff team for sure if all of those factors are in place. I think if you add 1 more, I don't want to say star even is what they need, but still you need a reliable 20 plus a night score. So I guess that's maybe a star. I think you're definitely 1 move away if the youngsters make significant development, and or if Andrew Wiggins comes back and plays more like he did in 2022. So I think a lot of that's dependent on how some of these guys show up and develop this season.
Yeah, and then the question becomes, if you do want to get that star, how much of the assets that you just mentioned, the Kuminga, the Wiggins,
See, I would have said bye to Brandon Podziemski. I would have been okay
are
with
involved
and
in that trade to make it happen. So that's why you wonder, are they one move away? Can they make the clean swap? Or is this thing going to maybe take a minute? And that's why Steph Curry's signing the extension. He knows that they're not going to be 2025 title contenders. He says, bring it on for 26. We got this. Let's see what we got this year. Let's give it the eye test, and let's keep, what was the word we used? Let's keep, what was the word we used?
What word?
This thing. What is this? Why did I forget it? It was the first word I said.
You started doing this randomly at the beginning of the show.
It's because they said I said a word.
Plotting. You said the Warriors are plotting.
Plotting, yes,
right?
As they plot. That's just severe ADD right there. A 20-second tangent to figure out the word plot. Coming up on today's show, the Warriors were plotting a potential star, LeBron James. How close was LeBron James to coming to the Bay Area, and the random human being that stopped it from happening? It's pretty close to LeBron, so not that random. But yeah, that's coming up. All right, one of my favorite apps, the Game. Great stuff. If you're going to a game, a concert, a comedy show, whatever it may be, and you're just a little bit late, or if you don't plan things out like myself, and you typically get down to an event and you're going to the ticket office and buying your ticket that way, forget about it. Gametime's got you covered. It's the best. You just scroll through, you find where your seats are, and the best part about it is you get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. How about that? And your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. So the Golden State Warriors and LeBron James coming to the Bay Area had a little traction last season. And the reason the talks were halted is pretty interesting. Sounds like the Lakers would have reluctantly entertained a trade conversation with the Warriors before last February's trade deadline. We heard the smoke, and apparently there was a little fire. That is if James wanted to seriously engage Golden State on a potential deal. Yet, league sources say that the reported talks between the teams never got that far, not because of Joe Lacob and Jeannie Buss. Actually, they had a little dialogue between the two of them. It was because of agent Rich Paul, who represents LeBron James. He was adamantly opposed to the idea of LeBron swapping Southern Cal for Northern California. And the reason why is because he wanted to save LeBron James from potential backlash over switching teams for the fourth time in his career. This is the same Rich Paul that told LeBron, you know what you should do since you're from Akron and Cleveland has never won anything in life, and it's 32 degrees right now, but 100 degrees down in Miami. I guess he did it in like June, so that wasn't the case. But you know what you should do to all the faithful of Cleveland? You should have a national program. You should go on the TV. You should have even betting odds, so a bunch of Cavs fans are putting money on you to return. You're absolutely returning to your hometown, right? And then you're going to tell them, I'm taking my talents to South Beach. That same guy thinks that his legacy would be a little bit tarnished if he went and played with Steph Curry. No, I think the big reason was, Kylen, he would have been second fiddle. Maybe not second best player on the team, but he would have been second most loved in the Bay. And that has never happened for LeBron James, and it never will in his career. And probably smart that Rich Paul broke it up. But man, can you imagine? Would have been pretty fun to watch, to say the least.
I think there's something to what you said about LeBron James not wanting to play second fiddle. I'm not a lover of LeBron James. I'm not a hater either. But I will say the guy's got an ego. I mean, look at the freaking announcement show, the choice, whatever. I mean, I could see that. I could 100% see that. I was someone who was not an advocate for LeBron to the Bay. However, I will say watching LeBron and Steph Curry and Kevin Durant in the Olympics is something that I will remember the rest of my life. Watching three of the greatest or the three greatest basketball players of our current generation, of this current iteration of the NBA on the same team, win gold, the epic comeback against Serbia, like that was spectacular. You saw all three of their talents on display in full force. So it kind of like makes me a little bit like, well, Steph and LeBron was kind of fun to watch in the Olympics. But I just think in terms of a long-term play, like, I'm sorry, but two 40-year-old stars on one team, like I just don't see that being a recipe for success for the future of the Golden State Warriors organization. LeBron has dealt with some health issues here and there. He's at the back end of his career. I don't think that it would. Draymond Green would love it. Sorry, I'm laughing and thinking out loud at the same time because there's got to be some people in the comment. Draymond and LeBron celebrating a birthday popped up on my freaking feed the other day, and I was just shaking my head and laughing because Dub Nation was just having a day with that. So hey, I could see it. I mean, those two have got to team up at some point because there is a serious bromance going on with Dre and LeBron. But like I said, I still stand by that. I think long-term, it's not the best play for the Dubs to even entertain a LeBron James trade. But I will say it was spectacular to watch in the Olympics, and let's just appreciate that for what it is.
Yeah, so I'm going through the standings right now, just looking at all the teams in the NBA. LeBron James is obviously not going to be a Golden State Warrior. That was a report from last year. It didn't happen for a reason. Rich Paul's not changing his mind. LeBron's got Bronny. He's under contract. That's not happening. I do, however, think a star is coming to the Bay Area. I don't know when. I don't know who. I don't know what plane he's going to get off of. But I'm just looking at teams that have a core right now that could potentially be broken up, or just have a star player that's on a really bad team. And I'm kind of just scrolling through. I mean, the Suns, never say never to Kevin Durant.
Hate Devin Booker.
Never say never, Kylen. I don't think it's going to happen. I'd love to see it happen. I think it'd be a lot of fun, especially with him and Steph Curry's contract kind of coinciding. Probably extend him. He'll be good for a couple more years. But them being, sixth in the Western Conference last year, that's a team that, could unload some talent if it doesn't go right. I don't think that's going to be the case, though. I think they're going to be fine, and they're not going to break things up. Pelicans, I already mentioned them. I don't think the Warriors want anything to do with Ingram unless that price comes down, because I don't think that they dislike Brandon Ingram as a player. It's just the cost attached to him. Doesn't give you much flexibility for the future. And Ingram, that piece that we're talking about, they're plotting to get a new piece. That's not the one. Kings, no, Rockets, Jazz, Grizzlies. I don't know. The question becomes, who are the Warriors going to find a trade partner with in the season? Because I believe that is the underlying story to the entire year. It changes if the Dubs are really good.
That sounds like a great subject in theory.
It also changes if they're really, really bad. Steph Curry hasn't signed an extension, and then you got to kind of wonder what to do. But that's the underlying story to the season for me, is who are they trading for and when? Because it's happening.
I think that sounds like a great topic for next episode. Let's come up with some off-the-wall trade scenarios that could happen as the season goes on based on which organizations we think are going to fall apart. If you have any thoughts, drop them in the comments. Like if you have a prediction for a team that you think could be sellers because things don't go right this season, drop it in the comments. We'll talk about it on our next episode or another episode this week, because I'd have to think long and hard about it. I don't know off the top of my head, but I mean, it is reassuring to hear based on the recent reports that the Warriors are plotting. If you're listening and not watching, I'm doing rubbing the hands together. I'm plotting. I'm trying to look like an evil genius, I guess. Chuck started it at the beginning of the show. Yeah. But let's break that down coming up later this week. So folks, drop your thoughts in the comments. at least if you're watching on YouTube, as to what teams you think could be potential sellers or possible trade partners as the season progresses and things don't go right.
I like that. I will pin it to the top of the YouTube comments, and we will see you soon. Appreciate you, Kylen, and give it a like and subscribe. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. See ya.